Daniel's chest tightened. He had no weapon, no armor, no plan beyond surviving the next minute. But she believed he could keep her safe, and somehow, that belief felt like enough. For the first time in his life, Daniel wasn't cleaning up after others. He was rewriting the story. The janitor was escaping with the galaxy's reborn secret, and nothing would ever be the same again. The tunnels groaned around them, metal pipes rattling as alarms roared through the facility. Daniel crawled ahead, guiding the alien girl through the narrow space. Her breathing was uneven, her new body still weak, but her grip on his sleeve was unshakable. Behind them, the sound of boots and heavy weapons grew louder. Soldiers were coming. Move faster, Daniel whispered, though his own arms burned with exhaustion. He had cleaned these tunnels for years, but never had they felt so endless, so suffocating. The girl stumbled, nearly collapsing. Daniel turned back, catching her before she hit the ground. Her eyes glowed faintly, trembling with something he had not seen before: power. The air grew warmer around her, like a storm trapped inside her veins. A soldier's voice echoed from the tunnel mouth. "There they are! Fire!" Bolts of searing energy blasted down the passage. Daniel shielded the girl with his body, bracing for pain, but the shots never reached him. Instead, the air shimmered around her. Sparks of light snapped into a thin barrier like invisible glass. The bolts struck and dissolved, leaving only smoke. Daniel's mouth fell open. You did that?" Her lips trembled. She didn't understand her own strength, but instinct had saved them both. The glow faded, and she slumped against him, drained. The soldiers roared in anger. "Push forward! Don't let them escape!" Daniel grabbed her hand, pulling her onward. "Come on!" Just a little further. They crawled out into a wider maintenance bay, pipes hissing steam all around. Daniel knew this place well. He had cleaned it 100 times. But this time, it wasn't just dirt he was fighting. It was death. The soldiers burst through the hatch, their rifles raised. Daniel dragged the girl behind a heavy machine. His heart pounded. He had no weapon, no armor. Only the faith of someone who looked at him and saw safety. The girl lifted her hand weakly, and energy flickered again, lighting up the shadows. She didn't fully control it. Bolts cracked against the walls, splitting pipes, spraying sparks. The soldiers ducked, shouting in confusion. One soldier sneered, stepping forward. "She's too weak. End this." Daniel's body moved before his mind. He grabbed a wrench from the floor, the kind he had used for years to fix broken pipes, and hurled it at the soldier's helmet. The man staggered, giving them a single precious second. "Run!" Daniel shouted. They dashed through the maze of pipes. The girl's energy sparked with every desperate step, flaring against walls, creating flashes of light like fireflies in the dark. The soldiers gave chase, firing wildly, their shouts echoing in the chamber, but the facility was Daniel's world. He knew the shortcuts, the blind corners, the places where only someone who had scrubbed and fixed every inch could move without hesitation. He led her through a narrow service duct, slamming the grate shut behind them. The soldiers pounded on it, but the duct twisted away, disappearing into shadows. They crawled until their arms ached, until the alarms became faint echoes. Finally, they spilled out into a forgotten storage room, hidden deep in the lower levels. Daniel collapsed against a crate, breathing hard. The girl leaned against him, her eyes glowing faintly, her voice soft. "Safe," she whispered again, but Daniel wasn't sure. He looked at the sealed door, knowing the soldiers wouldn't stop. They had seen her power. They had seen her bond with him. Now both of them were threats. He clenched his fists. He was just a janitor, but tonight he had stood against soldiers. And somehow they were still alive. The girl's small hand slipped into his, warm and steady. For her, that was enough. For him, it was the beginning of something he could no longer run from. The chase wasn't over. It had only just begun. The storage room was dark. lit only by the faint glow of broken panels and the soft shimmer in the alien girl's eyes. Daniel leaned against the wall, his chest rising and falling with ragged breaths. His hands were scraped, his clothes torn, but his grip on the girl's hand never loosened. Outside, the pounding of boots echoed through the halls. The soldiers were still searching. They would not stop, not until she was captured or destroyed. The girl rested against him, trembling but alive. Her body was weak, yet every time her gaze rose to meet his, her eyes steadied. For her, he was still the first face. The only safe place. Daniel swallowed hard. "They won't stop," he whispered. "They'll keep coming for you. And for me." The girl tilted her head, listening. Then, slowly, she raised her hand. Energy flickered between her fingers, small, uncertain sparks. But when she pressed her palm against his chest, the sparks grew brighter, flowing like a heartbeat. Images flashed in her eyes, memories she could not explain. Battles fought long before her rebirth. Fire raining from the skies. 1,000 voices calling her name. And then, silence. Until him. She whispered a single word. "Choose." Daniel froze. "Choose what?" Her voice trembled, broken but clear enough. "Path." The realization struck him like lightning. She was not asking for commands, not looking for orders like the scientists wanted. She was asking him, an ordinary janitor, to decide who she would become. If he taught her fear, she would become a weapon. If he taught her kindness, she would become hope. For the first time in his life, Daniel understood why she had seen him. He wasn't the strongest, or the smartest, or the most powerful. He was simply human, flawed, tired, invisible. But he had something the soldiers and scientists never did. He had compassion. The pounding at the door grew louder. Sparks flew as soldiers tried to cut their way inside. Daniel stood, pulling the girl gently to her feet. "You're not their weapon," he said firmly. "You're not their tool. You're alive. And you get to choose who you are." Her glowing eyes widened. She repeated softly, almost like a vow. "Alive." The door burst open. Soldiers stormed in, weapons ready. Daniel stepped in front of her, spreading his arms, unarmed but unafraid. "You'll have to go through me," the soldiers sneered. "You're just a janitor." But before they could fire, the girl's hand rose, glowing brighter than before. Energy surged through the room, not wild and uncontrolled as before, but focused, deliberate. She shielded Daniel with her body, her power flaring like a storm. Bolts of light forced the soldiers back, weapons clattering to the floor. The air shook with power, but her voice cut through the chaos, steady and sharp. "Friend, safe." Daniel stared at her in awe. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was choosing. The soldiers fled, shouting in panic, leaving the broken door behind them. Silence fell over the storage room, broken only by the hum of her energy fading back into stillness. Daniel turned to her. She was trembling, exhausted, but smiling faintly. For the first time since her rebirth, she looked at peace. "You were my first face," she whispered. "And my safe place." Daniel's throat tightened. He had never imagined his life would mean anything more than mops and empty halls. But tonight, he had changed the path of something far greater than himself. A janitor had saved her. A janitor had taught her what it meant to be alive. And in doing so, he had rewritten destiny. The galaxy might see her as a weapon. But to her, humanity would always begin with one man, an ordinary human janitor, who chose kindness when no one else did. Daniel hesitated, but his heart pulled him forward. He stepped closer to the glass. "It's okay," he whispered, his voice soft, steady. "I'm here." Her lips moved. The sound came broken, but stronger this time. "Who, man?" the scientist gasped again. Machines recorded every heartbeat, every breath. But Daniel didn't care about their data. He only saw her weak, confused, desperate for something familiar. The chamber hissed as it opened. Steam rolled out, and she stumbled forward, her body still learning balance. One guard rushed to catch her, but she pushed him away with surprising force. Her knees nearly buckled, and before she fell, Daniel stepped in. She collapsed into his arms. The room froze. The janitor, the man who mopped floors, was now holding the galaxy's most precious experiment. Her head rested against his chest. Her breath was shallow but calm, as if she trusted him completely. Daniel felt her heartbeat racing against his shirt, fragile but strong enough to fight. Unbelievable, the chief scientist muttered. She accepts physical contact only with him, one of the guards snarled. This is dangerous. She must be controlled before it's too late. But Daniel ignored them. He looked down at her face, at the girl who had been built from nothing, and spoke softly. Don't worry. You're safe. Her fingers clutched his sleeve. She whispered a single word. Safe. It was her first true word. The scientists erupted in argument. Some shouted about progress, others about risk. The guards tightened their grip on their weapons. But Daniel barely heard them. For the first time in his life, something, not only noticed him but depended on him. He guided her to a chair. She sat shakily, still gripping his sleeve as if letting go would mean losing herself. Her eyes wandered around the lab, but every few seconds they snapped back to him, anchoring her. The scientist bombarded her with strange alien words, trying to trigger a reaction. She ignored them. Instead, she copied Daniel's movements. When he lifted his hand, she lifted hers. When he said, drink, and handed her water, she repeated, drink, and obeyed. Her learning was too fast. The scientists were amazed, but also unsettled. She's imprinting, one said nervously. If he teaches her kindness, she learns kindness. If he teaches her rebellion. Daniel heard the tone in their voices and felt a chill. They didn't see her as alive. They saw her as a tool, a weapon, a project. But when she looked up at him, her eyes wide and curious, Daniel knew the truth. She was not a tool. She was a person. And somehow, for reasons no one understood, she had chosen him as her first bond. The lead scientist leaned toward the guards and whispered harshly, keep watch. If this goes the wrong way, we shut her down. Daniel's stomach twisted. He understood the danger now. Her survival depended not only on her strength, but on him, on protecting the fragile trust between them. The girl smiled faintly, repeating another word he had just said. Friend. Daniel froze, stunned. A simple word, yet it echoed like a vow. The guards scowled. The scientist scribbled. But in that moment, only two people mattered in the room. A fragile alien girl, reborn from a single hand. And a janitor who had never mattered to anyone until now. Asterisk, the scientists thought they were in control. The guards believed their weapons were enough. But ever since the alien girl had opened her eyes, the balance inside the laboratory had shifted. And everyone knew it. She clung to the janitor's sleeve as though it was her lifeline. Every time a scientist spoke, she ignored them. Every time a guard moved too close, she recoiled. But when the janitor whispered, she calmed. When he guided her, she listened. That was not what the commanders wanted. Behind the glass wall of the observation deck, officials argued in low voices. This is unacceptable, one snarled. She should respond to us, not him. She's imprinting too strongly. If he teaches rebellion, she will follow. Another voice, colder than the rest, spoke with finality. Then remove him, quietly, before she grows stronger. Daniel didn't hear the words, but he felt the change in the air. Guards began watching him too closely. Their hands stayed near their rifles. Their eyes narrowed each time the girl touched his arm. One evening, as he finished mopping the corridor, he overheard two soldiers whispering near the doors. They want the janitor gone. Orders are to make it look like an accident. The mop froze in his hand. His stomach turned to ice. They weren't just planning to control her. They were planning to silence him. Inside the chamber, the alien girl stirred in her sleep. Even in her dreams, her hand reached for the spot where he had stood. As if she sensed the danger already, Daniel leaned against the wall, his heart racing. For years he had lived quietly, invisible, unimportant. Now for the first time, someone needed him, and that made him a target. The next morning, when he entered the lab, the lead scientist pulled him aside. The man's smile was thin, his eyes sharp. "She is progressing well," he said smoothly. "But your involvement is not required any longer. From today, you are reassigned. Another handler will take your place." Daniel's pulse spiked. He glanced at the alien girl. She was awake, sitting up, her eyes searching until they found him. Relief washed over her face when she saw him, like sunlight breaking through clouds. Reassigned? No, he knew what that really meant. He shook his head. "She doesn't trust anyone else." The scientist's smile faded. "She will adapt. All things adapt. Or they are disposed of." The words chilled him. That night, alarms echoed through the hallways. A malfunction in the lab. At least that's what the loudspeakers claimed. But Daniel saw the truth, the guards moving with intent, their steps too coordinated, their weapons armed. They weren't here for a malfunction. They were here for her. Daniel's mind raced. If they took her, she would be locked away, broken down, maybe destroyed. And if they removed him, she would wake alone, with no safe face to cling to. For the first time, he made a choice he never thought he would make. He picked up his cleaning cart, rolled it toward the chamber, and whispered to the girl through the glass, "Stay quiet. Trust me." Her eyes widened, but she obeyed as the guards stormed into the room. Daniel's heart pounded. The world had always ignored him. But tonight, he was the only thing standing between her and the people who wanted to control her. And for the first time in his life, being invisible wasn't enough. He had to act. The alarms screamed through the corridors, red lights flashing like blood against the walls. Guards poured into the laboratory, weapons raised, their boots striking the floor in sharp rhythm. The scientists shouted orders, trying to sound in control, but the truth was clear. This was not about safety. This was about removing the janitor and seizing the girl. Daniel's hands trembled on the handle of his cleaning cart. He had lived his whole life staying quiet, unnoticed, obedient. But tonight, invisibility would kill her. The alien girl stood weakly behind the glass, her eyes wide with fear. When she saw the soldiers moving toward her, she pressed her hands against the chamber, desperate. And when her eyes found Daniel's, she mouthed a single word, "Safe." He couldn't let that word die without thinking. He rolled the cart forward, pressing a hidden button he had installed long ago for small repairs. The chamber's release valve hissed, and the door slid open. Steam poured out as the girl stumbled into his arms. Her body shook, fragile but alive. "Stay low," he whispered. She nodded, clinging to him as though the world outside was poison. The guards shouted, "Stop him! Contain the subject!" Daniel pushed her into the cart, pulling a pile of dirty rags and tools over her small frame. To anyone else, it looked like nothing more than a janitor's junk. But beneath it, the galaxy's most valuable secret was hiding. He forced the cart forward. His heart thundered with every step. "Hey, you!" A soldier barked, pointing his rifle. Daniel froze. Sweat dripped down his back. The soldier sneered. "What's in the cart?" Daniel forced a nervous laugh, scratching his head. "Trash, just trash. You don't want to smell it." The guard stepped closer. For a terrible moment, Daniel thought it was over. But then an explosion shook the far side of the facility machines, failing under the false malfunction. The soldiers cursed and ran toward the noise, leaving him alone in the hall. Daniel pushed the cart faster, his breath shallow, his arms burning. Inside, the girl shifted, whispering softly, "Friend, safe." The words nearly broke him. He had never been a hero. He had never been more than a shadow sweeping floors. But now she believed in him, and that belief gave him strength he didn't know he had. They turned corner after corner, the lights flickering above them. Every door seemed locked, every hallway filled with risk. But Daniel knew the back routes of this place better than anyone. For years he had cleaned the forgotten passages, the maintenance tunnels no one else cared about. Now those same tunnels were their only chance. At last, he reached a service hatch. He kicked it open, revealing a narrow crawl space filled with pipes and cables. "Go," he whispered. The alien girl crawled inside, her movements clumsy but determined. Daniel followed, dragging the cart behind him until it jammed in the hatch. He left it there, blocking the entrance. Shouts echoed behind them. Flashlights swept the corridor. "They're close." Daniel pulled the girl forward, crawling through the dark tunnel, the sound of boots pounding after them. The girl's voice trembled, but her words were steady. "Safe with you." The laboratory was silent except for the hum of machines. Bright lights shone down a glass chamber in the center of the room. Inside that chamber, suspended in glowing fluid, floated a single alien hand. The hand was all that remained of a once great warrior. For months, the scientists had argued, tested, and failed. Could life really be rebuilt from only this? Now on this night, the answer was finally coming. Metal arms lowered into the chamber. Needles released streams of silver liquid that wrapped around the hand like threads of light. Slowly, cell by cell, the body began to rebuild. First, a wrist formed, then bone stretched into arms, ribs, and a spine. Flesh wove itself together. Skin sealed over new muscles. A face began to take shape, soft but unfamiliar, like a memory returning from the void. The scientists watched in awe. Their voices shook. "It is working. She is returning." Yet not everyone felt pride. Some were afraid. Rebuilding her meant risking power beyond control. The room filled with tension as her body grew more complete. Her chest rose and fell with the first breath. Her heart began to beat. Monitors screamed with life signals. The alien girl, once gone forever, was alive again. Her eyes opened. They glowed faintly at first, confused, searching for something, someone. The scientists leaned forward, waiting for her to see them. They expected her to lock onto their faces, their technology, their authority. But her gaze slid past them. Her head turned, slow and uncertain, toward the far corner of the room. And there, half hidden in the shadows, stood a man no one noticed. A human janitor. He wore plain clothes. His hands were rough from years of cleaning floors, scrubbing walls, fixing broken machines. No one respected him. To the scientists, he was invisible. But to her newly awakened eyes, he was the only one that mattered. Their eyes met. The janitor froze, mop in hand. His heart skipped. He was just doing his late-night shift, sweeping dust that never seemed to end. Now this strange being, this reborn alien girl, was staring at him like he was the most important person in the universe. The scientists noticed. Confusion spread across their faces. Why him? One whispered, "She should be looking at us," another muttered. "We created her," but she did not look away. She pressed her hand against the glass, trembling, weak, but reaching out. The same hand that had been her beginning. Her lips moved. No sound came at first, but then a broken whisper formed. "Who?" "Man!" Gasps filled the lab. The scientists stepped back. Some shouted that it was impossible. Others rushed to record every detail. But the janitor did not move. He dropped his mop and walked slowly to the chamber, drawn forward as if fate itself had called him. He placed his palm on the glass. Right where hers rested. In that moment, something passed between them. A bond no one expected. She had been rebuilt from nothing, reborn in a strange place, surrounded by strangers. Yet the first face she saw, the first touch she recognized, was his. The janitor felt a shiver run through him. He had no training, no authority, no power. He was just a man who swept the floors while others changed the galaxy. But her eyes told him a different story. To her, he was not small. To her, he was everything. Alarms suddenly blared. The reconstruction process was unstable. Lights flickered red. Guards rushed in, weapons ready. Scientists shouted orders. But she kept her eyes locked on him, refusing to let go of that connection. The janitor whispered, his voice shaking but steady enough for her to hear. "It's okay. You're safe now." Her breathing calmed. The monitors stabilized. The scientists exchanged stunned glances. Somehow his words mattered more than their machines. And so, from the ashes of death, from nothing but a hand, she was reborn. And the very first face she saw in this new life was not a scientist, not a soldier, not a leader, but a human janitor. The story of their bond had only just begun. The janitor's name was Daniel Cole, but almost no one remembered it. To the scientists and guards, he was simply the cleaner. For years, he had worked in the shadows of great halls and sterile laboratories, mopping the floors no one else cared about. Every morning, he wiped away the footprints of men who thought themselves gods. Every night, he polished the glass chambers where alien experiments slept in silence. No one noticed him. No one thanked him. He was invisible, but tonight was different. The alien girl's eyes had chosen him. Daniel stood frozen, his heart pounding. He had seen many strange things while cleaning alien specimens, genetic experiments, machines that glowed with power he could not understand, but nothing like this. A life rebuilt from a single hand. And now that life was staring at him, refusing to look away, the guards shifted uneasily. One soldier whispered, "Why is she ignoring us?" Another raised his weapon, but the lead scientist barked, "Wait! Don't interfere. Observe." Daniel felt their eyes burning into him. He wanted to step back, to vanish into the shadows as he always did. But the girl's gaze held him in place. It was as if she had anchored her soul to him, as if she had decided he was her center in this strange new world. She pressed her palm harder against the glass, her body trembling from weakness. Daniel slowly raised his hand again, resting it where hers touched. He whispered, almost without meaning to, "You're not alone." The monitors spiked with new energy. Her breathing steadied. The scientists gasped, recording every detail. They had worked for months to bring her back, and yet one simple janitor's voice had done what their machines could not. Remarkable. The chief scientist muttered, "She is imprinting." On him, whispers spread like fire. Some were fascinated, others angry. Daniel caught a few words. Dangerous, unpredictable, unacceptable. He swallowed hard. He had never been important before. Now suddenly, he was the center of their attention and their suspicion. The girl's lips moved again. This time her voice was clearer, though still broken and weak. "Who, man?" The word echoed in the chamber, small but powerful. The guards stiffened. The scientists fell silent. Daniel stared at her, stunned. She could have chosen any word, any sound, and she chose to name him. For the first time in years, he felt seen. But being seen was dangerous. He knew it. Everyone in the lab knew it. The alien girl was not meant to bond with a janitor. She was meant to serve higher purposes: military, political, scientific. Not him, never him. One guard stepped forward, scowling. "This is wrong. Separate them now." Daniel's instincts screamed to run, to hide, to pretend this moment never happened. But something deep inside stopped him. A strange, protective feeling, something he didn't understand, rose in his chest. He could not step away. He looked back at her. She was fragile, her new body shaking as if it might fall apart. Yet her eyes carried the weight of galaxies. She was alive again, but she had no one. No family, no people, no safe place, except him. Daniel clenched his fists. For once, he wasn't just a janitor sweeping floors. For once, he mattered. The alien girl's hand slid down the glass as her strength faded. Her eyes fluttered, but she kept looking at him until they closed. The scientists rushed to stabilize her vitals. Machines hissed and beeped. Orders flew through the air. But Daniel stood still, his hand still pressed against the chamber. He whispered to himself, almost a promise, "If she wakes again, I'll be here." The guards scowled, already plotting to remove him. The scientists debated, already arguing about control and danger. But none of them understood the truth. The girl had chosen her first face, and it was his dot, and that choice would change everything. The alien girl lay inside the chamber, her chest rising and falling with a slow rhythm. Her body was fragile, but alive. Muscles twitched as if they were still learning to obey. Her fingers curled and uncurled, testing strength. The light above reflected in her pale eyes, but she did not look at the scientists crowding the room. She searched for only one thing, and then she found him. Daniel, the janitor, was standing quietly near the far wall, his mop forgotten at his side. Their eyes met again. A flicker of recognition passed through her gaze, almost like relief. The lead scientist scribbled notes. Subject imprints on the human male again. Strong response. Fascinating. Guards exchanged worried glances. This was not in the plan. She was supposed to recognize her own kind, obey commands, and become their weapon. Instead, she reached out, trembling, toward a man in faded work clothes.